contribution, let them know. Democracy in Spice Isles is alive and well. Ask you questions, sing and beat you drum. Make you suggestions, encourage them on to walk the straight and narrow in the land. Politics, religion and economic issue, regional, international, spiritual issues too. Agricultural, environmental and trending to subject matter. We fear none, we back down. Freedom of speech is enshrined in the land. God, we freedom, jealous and they in Cuba, Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Right now North Korea, wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean, lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Galaxy Equalizer, ready like Freddy. And Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it, let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is a road. Chinese and lucky like we. Rand and North Korea, wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean, lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too.
Welcome my brothers, welcome my sisters. Welcome our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. We on to Studio Galaxy 473 in Confer. As usual, on a Saturday, we with Studio Galaxy 473 in Confer. And the number to call, 536-2558. This is a interactive program where we basically provoke discussion on issues. We want our farmers in Grenada to sit down and discuss the issues and come up with answers. We believe that we have the ability and we are quite capable to address the challenges that face us. And we are with our brother Joshua. And the theme today is, what are the options available to finance farmers? What are the options available to finance farmers? We believe that farmers must know what are the options available. If you're thinking about getting involved in farming, you must know how you're going to finance, what are the options available. And we want farmers to get an opportunity to continue the discussion after our program finish. Maybe you might have to question extension officers. Maybe you might have to question financial institutions. Maybe you have to question people in the rum shop or on the block. Anywhere you meet them. If you are a farmer, if you are interested in farming, if your family members are farmers, you could serve as a resource personnel for them in helping to guide them. Joshua, some people bury their head in farming And while they were doing it, they lose the market.
Yeah.
So today, we want to welcome our brother as we discuss the issue. What are the options available to finance farmers? And don't forget to subscribe. That is important for us. We are a new kid on the block.
And call.
And call. And like the program. Yes, my brother.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. It's a cool day in Grenada today. We've had, in my part of the world, St. Andrews, we've had some nice cool rain in the morning. So it's one of those cool morning in St. Andrews. We're up here in Paraclete. And it's nice to be with everybody in Grenada, the diaspora, worldwide, etc. It's very nice. Before we jump into the subject, I always like to put us in context, what's going on in the world. And there's two things that struck my mind, really. I was driving going up to Blair's a couple of days ago, and I met Mr. Pierre coming down. We had a brief little discussion, and he said something to me that stuck in my mind. It resonated with me. I said to him, as I normally said, I'm no damn farmer, I'm just trying a thing. And he said to me, you must stop saying that. That is what you're saying is not true. You're not an agricultural worker, but you're a farmer. You might not know how to dig the hole or plant the thing, but, you know, you're a farmer. Look what you're doing. So I was pleased with that clarity because in my mind, I hadn't worked out the different little parts in terms of farming. So I'm very much a farmer, and I accept that, Mr. Pierre. The other thing that I want to kind of just put into perspective, because the context in the world that we live in at the moment is really unstable. People have not really found their balance as yet with what's going on with the talk of tariff or taxes on Grenada and what's going on in the United States and the fallout with China. Now, it seems to me to put this thing in a very simple form so that we can really start to understand what's going on. And I thought about it. I thought, basically, what I've heard the talk in America is that America is buying too much goods from different people all over the world, and therefore they blaming China for that on the main and others. And it sounds to me, it's like when you take your credit card and you go to all the different shops and you buy the goods, and then having bought the goods, you go back to the shop and you blame them for selling you the goods. You know you don't have no money on the credit card, but you still go in and buy the goods. And because the shop is willing to sell you the goods with the credit card, you then blame the shop for selling you the goods. That don't make sense. That is nonsense. The other thing that's very clear in my mind, and I feel for Grenada, and I think we have to raise the awareness in Grenada about that. Now, the American administration is saying they want manufacturing back in America. They want the jobs back in America. But look at poor Grenada. What manufacturing we have? What are we manufacturing? We're manufacturing our cocoa. We're manufacturing our nutmeg. We don't even making steak with our beef. You know, and we are at the bottom of the pile. Now, if big, mighty America is saying that, you know, they have to do all their manufacturing and their processing in America. Shouldn't that be a wake-up call for Grenada? That Grenada has to do its light manufacturing and secondary processing in Grenada? Shouldn't we be on the streets marching for jobs to remain in Grenada? Shouldn't we be doing that? Shouldn't a consciousness have started in terms of, we talk about this thing all the time, we're an extraction economy, we grow the damn things and we send it abroad for it to be secondary processed, manufactured and come back. America ready to go to war because they actually started that. There's nobody better than America in terms of that system. They created the system and they used the system. So the things might not be manufactured in America, but it's the American company that go to Hong Kong and go to China and go to South America and they build their factory there because the labor is cheaper. Everything is cheaper and they bring it back to America, the finished goods, and sell it. There's nobody better at that system than America. I was looking at the data from that last week, and America gets $8 trillion from that system in terms of income. So they created the system, and now everybody has to pay the price because it no longer suits them. But poor little Grenada, from Grenada inception, it was built to do that. Grenada is designed to that. We are designed to import every damn thing we want. Even the little panties and underpants we have to import. Is that so difficult to make? So that level of consciousness, people, and it's not about farmers, growing potatoes. The world has changed. We have to have an awareness of how things work, what's going on in the world. We can't just say, okay, I'm a teacher and I'm teaching English and that's it. We have to be better rounded people. We have to have better understanding. We don't have to kind of drive to go to St. George's to the university. We just have to go to the University of Google. It's there on our fingertips every day. So I'm saying to everybody, we have a responsibility to start understanding what's really going on in our world. And we can't say, oh, it's America or whatever. What happens in America affects us. America says we're in their backyard. The Prime Minister of Barbados saying we're not in nobody's backyard, which is quite right, But people, let's raise that awareness. Now that I've had my rant, let's talk about
what are the options available for our farmers.
Yeah.
Because, Joshua, it makes no sense that you're planning or you decide or you was in farming for 1,000 years and you don't know what are the options available for finance, to access finance.
Yeah, quite right. And it actually links to what I was ranting about this morning. We need that awareness of what's going on in our world. Now, we have created, or our culture was designed for us to be over-dependent in terms of our ministries, and we often are over-dependent and over-blaming our Ministry of Agriculture. We want everything from them, we blame them for everything, and then we say they don't have the personnel, they don't have the resources, they don't have the innovation, the creativity there, but we blame them for everything. So one of the things that we have to move more towards now is self-reliance.
First of all, the ministry, in all fairness to them, they provide concessions.
Yeah, the ministry provides concession, and that's very much welcome in terms of from the farmers.
A lot of the four-wheel drive vehicles you see in town, where farmers is concerned, they got 100% concession.
Yeah.
To purchase that vehicle.
Yeah.
100% concession.
Yeah.
So they may get a $25,000 off on $140,000 vehicle.
Yeah, I think.
And that is significant.
Yeah, and the Isuzus, which I see on the road, a lot of them, I think you can get them for about 80,000, 75,000.
You have cheaper others, the vans and etc.
Yeah, the Isuzu pickups, the 4-wheel drive, whatever.
And the requirement is not that. I think once you're able to show documentary proof that your income from the land is about $25,000 per annum, you can access the $100,000.
Yeah, I think.
Or if you can show some developmental project,
Yeah.
because you may have a new piece of land, but if you can show, the requirement is reasonable.
Yeah,
It's not unjustified.
Yeah, that's a help to farmers.
And then the extension officer
Yeah.
have to work with you to get that done. Maybe 2-3 weeks. Even the timing is all right.
Yeah, well,
Room to complain.
I've just been involved in that, Mr. Pierre. One of my suppliers, he had asked me for copies of the receipts of all the goods that he sent me and that he sold to me. And lo and behold, it came up to about 21,000. And he said to me, oh, I just have to meet 20,000. But this was just one part of his business. He was amazed at how much money he was making because, and this was just in plantain and callaloo and a few little dashing, but he also has livestock. He grows pigs and cattle as well, and he barbecues as well. And he only recently started this business about 2 or 3 years ago. His main business was a builder. He built houses. But now he's very much entrenched in the land, and he's making progress. When I saw the vehicle, it was a nice, spanking, brand new vehicle. I think it was the Isuzu, and I shook his hand and I said, well done, we're making little progress, boy, bit by bit. You know, so, I mean, you know, these things are appreciated.
And that has been there with us for over 40 years.
Yeah.
That has been concession on vehicle for farmers has been in Grenada for over 40 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So that. Another area is you can get concession on agriculture, equipment, tools, and supply. So let us suppose you want to fence your land. Again, you have to work with the extension officer because they might realize you want to fence your house.
Yeah. Well, if you, okay, I have something to say about that.
And they may not give you the concession.
Yeah, no, I have something to say about that, Mr. Pierre.
Yeah, well,
you talk about fencing, and I think we have to emphasize the importance of fencing, whether our house is inside the fence or not. This is a very, very important area that we need to raise awareness about. The land, if you're doing livestock, you know, has to be fenced. I saw something on the news like they were taking on like 100, I don't know how many officers to help with the stealing in agriculture. And you know, I was happy when I saw that because it's needed. I've been hit a couple of times. A lot of people I know have been hit as well. It's demoralizing whether they thief $10 from you or $10,000. It affects you more or less the same way. It's hurtful. So that land and that fencing is very, very important.
We might have to have a whole topic on fencing. So let's look at the concession.
Yeah, but we get concessions for fencing.
So let us suppose a farmer want to fence 10, 15, 20 acres of land. I use housing because sometimes when the extension officer reach, you realize it's 40,000 square feet of land you have. And obviously you ain't doing no livestock on that. So you don't bother with it. But again, a pump, water pumps, any electrical supplies, they will give you concession on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe even though you have cameras for land, and they believe they would give you concession. Yeah. The idea is that is one of the source you can get to finance. Yeah. It's like an indirect, you know.
Yeah, and that is good. But one of the things I've seen, Mr. Pierre, that I'm not sure how practical it is, because I've come to the view that farmers have to live on their land if they're farming. It's been very difficult for me to come to that view because I like to live just outside of Grenville where I could walk into Grenville and I could see what and hear what's going on. But I came to the view, this is my personal view. My land is probably about maybe 3-4 miles away from Grenville. And my grandfather, who lived on the land, used to walk to Grenville every morning. He was one of the original goldsmiths. He used to make jewelry in Grenville. Now,
You don't want to walk from Grenville to go over the line.
the 4-wheel drive there. No, but I'm seriously considering living on the land.
Well,
You know, and there's also something you could get in terms of, again, it's like a concession. You can sometimes get material from the government, about 8,000 if you qualify,
what material?
you know, to build a little thing on the land.
No.
Housing, so you could live.
Stop it. We're talking about government provide concession. That is accepted and legal. And the concession for farmers for pump, for fencing is there. Politician may give you something on the side. But where the concession is concerned, once you qualify, it doesn't matter which politician it is. And that has been going on for the last 40 years. So as a farmer, that definitely has nothing to do with the politics.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, one of the things that I've come to the conclusion about, farmers need to live on their land.
But if
And
you have
if they're
20%
gonna
land, you could live on them?
if we're gonna incentivize them to live on the land, they need housing to
What
live
you
on.
need to do is to build a little branca, a book on the
Yeah,
land.
yeah,
When
yeah.
you go inside there, you sleep up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a little kept
Yeah.
up there, everything.
Yeah, you need that.
important.
Yeah, because I think
You need a kept.
yeah, you need something on the land. I
Joshua,
think before they used to
Joshua,
have the
you didn't hear what I say. Do you need a kept miss on the land? No, that was a low blow.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
But we need to have a presence on the land all the time. I think that's one of the reasons, like, people think they could just come and walk in your land and take, because they know, well, he might come today, he might not
We
come
have
tomorrow.
to do a program and pre their lesson. Yeah. I don't agree with the government. This program there is a waste of time. It wouldn't help. But anyway,
So we have the pumps, as you're saying, and all
Yeah.
the equipment, and that is very much welcome. The irrigation, and irrigation is a big part of cash crop farming these days. You know,
and
it's
the fishermen,
critical.
I believe, get concession on engines and all kind of
Yeah.
And the fishermen also get rebate on gas. So
Yeah.
we're speaking about financing for farmers now. So you have concession on vehicles. You have concession on agriculture tools and equipment. You have concession on engine for boats, fishermen, and you have rebate for gas. So that is a direct or indirect assistance from the government of Grenada for farmers. And that has been there for the last 40 years. So every farmer or potential farmer in Grenada should know that. Another area, Joshua, is the banks and financial institutions.
Yeah, and the banks have always talked the talk in terms of agriculture and developing agriculture. But where it's strained is, often people talk about the kind of requirements that's required before the bank will lend. Now we have the GDB Bank has a small business loan for up to 10,000 without security for farmers. And then we have an innovative kind of financing for farmers up to 50,000, and you don't have to have security to get it. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has a program where they will put up the security for you up to 50,000. I think there's a requirement. You must have records for a year or 2 years or something like that. But that's partly due, I think, to our governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. That's probably due to Timothy leadership. So up to 50,000. Now, the pure commercial banks, I don't always think that they've had the mechanism in place to really lend to agriculture. For example, the simple things that we know. So, you say, for example, you want to start with say some beef. You want to do cows. You buy the cow, and then you have to wait for how long before it becomes mature or whatever.
2 years.
2 years. So 2 years before you get a lump sum. So that doesn't lend itself well to the traditional lending. So they have to create special lending for, livestock. So I know the chicken very well because I did a lot of work with institutions on the chicken. So for example, if you buy layers, you buy the baby chick layers, and then you have to wait about 9 months before they start giving you eggs. So for 9 months you have no income. Not only do you not have any income, but you have a strain on you because every week you have to buy feed, and feed is about 70-80% of your cost as a layer farmer. So you have to have that money. So essentially the bank has to create a system where you have money for a year and you have no means of paying it back. So there has to be these special lending mechanism that the banks have to do in terms of lending, specialized lending. And that hasn't worked very well in Grenada, and I'm not sure that it will work any better. I have been involved with a group of people who are trying to work out a mechanism for agricultural lending in the OECS. So hopefully when that comes on board, that will help. But I don't have no great hope, in terms of lending from the pure commercial banks, because there's a need for education in that area. I think people are willing to lend, but they don't understand how to lend, and therefore doing traditional lending gives the farmers a bad name because they say, well, he's not paying back, he's not this. But you have to understand, the area in which you lend.
It's not a question to say they say not paying back. You have a lot of police service loan from farmers. Farmers, by the very nature of agriculture, the level of risk involved, the unpredictability of the weather, and also the crop. You might grow a crop of pawpaw, and you take bunch it up, and you didn't get from it. And that is one of the reasons that the development bank was established, so that the farmers, the people the vendors, the people in this informal sector, the bank would provide loan for them with a softer condition. And bearing in mind, there will be higher risk of the bank not collecting back the money. So government came in and put money in the bank and looked for financial institutions and other aid agencies to contribute. And that's why the rules of the bank was so express that people who could access loans in the commercial banks should not take loans in these banks, particularly politicians and the immediate families. They say, no, because you are the government, because you are director of the bank, because of the temptation, this must be resolved for it. It's not that the politicians would not have qualified because they poor like more than church mice.
Yeah.
But it was there to help to provide some better management
But
practice.
Mr. Pierre, I remember our former Prime Minister saying, "Don't go there, don't go there."
Well, I don't bother with nobody about don't go there when you're thinking about finances. So that is one of the challenges that we have with finance. But the challenge that you have is that too many times you're speaking to a farmer and you ask, what are the options available for farming? And you're doing as if you're speaking a foreign language.
Yeah.
And I believe farmers must know.
And I too believe that.
Even children that do agriculture always have fun. Always have fun with children who do agriculture science in school. And they're quick to tell me they get an A. And I'll immediately ask them, what are the options available for financing for farmers? And they do as if you're speaking French. Okay, if you just get an A in agriculture, you must know these things. And this is why we're speaking about it. When a child is studying agriculture, that child must know what are the options available for financing. And that is why people go to school, they do agriculture, and when they come out and they find what's going on, they don't even want to see the certificate.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize it. So these are the challenges that we have. And it's very important for farmers to know what are the options available. Joshua, another option have to be equity financing.
Yeah, equity financing has been used all over the world. So let me explain it a little bit what equity financing is. It's essentially people buying a share in a fund. So it's the closest I can think is the credit union, where you buy shares in the credit union, and that allows you to kind of take out loans and different things in the credit union. So the way the equity financing work is, you might buy some shares, maybe $100, $50, $10, 10,000, 20,000, and you pool that money together. When everybody has bought the shares initially, you might have 2 or 3 million in the pot, and the fund is managed by a group of professionals, and the money is loaned for a specific area. It might be agriculture, and it's loaned out at a very low interest rate, maybe 2%, 3%, etc., to cover the cost and to make a little profit for the shareholder. It's really for development. Now, one of the reasons why I like equity financing is because we have so many patriots in Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and throughout the Caribbean. We have a lot of Grenadians everywhere, and although they're not in Grenada, they would like to help in the development of Grenada. So maybe they can't come to Grenada for 6 months with their fork and cutlass and dig some hole and cut some bush. Mr. Pierre used to say, what we have 3 something,
Balajé, Bamboo, and Bacano.
Maybe they can't come to help cut that down, but they could buy the shares so that Grenadian farmers have access to these funds to develop agriculture. And you'll be amazed. The first time I saw how this worked really well was with the Kittitians. St. Kitts is very small, and at the time population was about 30,000. But they were so proud that they had invested in St. Kitts, and they had the shares to show. The shares didn't grow a great deal, but they were proud that they had made a commitment to St. Kitts. So I believe that rather than reinventing the wheel, we could look at equity financing in terms of that, and it's easy. I happened to be socializing last week with a group of former students from SARS. One of my friends pulled me into a couple of their functions, and all of them would buy shares in an equity fund, because it's something that they feel good about, that they want to contribute to Grenada. But, quite often they get caught up in terms of buying a wheelchair or buying some Pampers and this and that and complaining how it don't get to where it did. But I was saying, well, what we need is development financing, things that will be transformational, make a difference to Grenada. And there's nothing more important to Grenada in this current climate than food sovereignty and food security. And so if that finance was there and our farmers had access to it and it was well managed, I think that will be a big help, because it's been shown that it works all over the world, whether United States, Canada, Little St. Kitts, etc. And it doesn't have to be just for agriculture. It's been used in terms of developing and land for agriculture, and buying agricultural land and having it there to be leased out to farmers. So that's something I really believe, by the end of the last quarter in 2025, I really hope that we could have a framework in terms of this thing with one of the major institutions, in Grenada. Probably a credit union. I don't know. Credit unions seem to be the flavor of the month. Although
The credit union behaving just as the bank. They behaving just. I've never seen a group of people. They behaving just as the bank. But the idea of equity financing should be a discussion issue among farmers, among institutions in our country. People send millions of dollars.
yes,
Millions of dollars in Grenada in foodstuff, books. And
Yeah.
since OEOO, some of the things they bring, though good, it is outdated, it's obsolete. They spend so much of time and energy and money and raise fund because they want to help.
yeah.
Now we are saying another way to help is equity financing.
Yeah.
And obviously, sometimes I am so challenged when you see institutions in Grenada now that should be of such a reputation that we could have easily called and say that is something you should undertake. The GDB Bank should be glad to have an arm
Yes.
that specialize in equity financing.
Yeah. And
And they're above board.
the new manager, I think he's very much into that kind of financing.
But I want
because,
the whole board resign, you know. I want the whole board of directors go, you know.
yeah,
Because I'm a wild advocate. And this is one of the reasons things has upset me badly. Because at this stage, the bank should be of such an quality in management that we should be encouraging them to take on equity financing as a special arm.
I think you're right. I don't know about the whole board because I don't even know the board.
No, since after they flaunt the law, they flaunt the 1973 law. In 1973, the laws and regulation was placed that the ministers of government, the directors of the bank and the immediate family must not take loan from the bank. It's not that they don't need it, you know. Some of them need it more than us.
And they
was
qualified.
closing the door to corruption. We don't want the minister who appoint the director to take a loan because he'll give his wife, his children, and his son.
Yeah. Okay. I
So
understand.
this was the. It's not that they were not qualified. It's not that they didn't need. It's not that they didn't have a good idea. But it was an effort to put the bank overboard. Is overboard you call it? Yeah, overboard. Make it squeaky clean.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
And now we should be calling on this bank to take on equity financing.
Yeah.
All these Grenadians are raising all these loans. Some of them send the Pampers one side. Some of them send bed. Some of them I feel sorry for our people.
Yeah, Mr. Pierre, as you're talking and I'm listening, I'm thinking we could easily have a fund of 10 million within a year or two, with this.
But the time is not the issue, because if you have organization, the organization must be above board. That's the correct terminology in terms of economics. They must be above board. They must appear and look to be squeaky clean. You cannot be blatantly violating the regulations.
Yeah, I know what they say. They say not only must you do justice, but
it must appear and seem to be done.
Yeah, justice must be seen to be done.
So we need because if you're going to really delve in equity financing, you need.
You can't give the appearance that the director could dip on him, or the director could give a cousin.
Yes, the director have a girlfriend, she nice as guava. When he see her, he forget where to say, you could get the whole bank.
Yeah, that could be tidied up. So and I think sometimes we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
No, I only want to throw the directors. Ask the directors at the bank to go.
Oh God!
You cannot. The directors of the bank flaunted the law and people with impunity.
And people don't seem to resign here.
No, they don't resign what? You said that they want to kill you, they're financing you, they're taking you.
They don't resign it.
No, they don't resign. No pride, no shame. That is why we need to ball them out.
Oh, Lord.
So one of the ways we could raise funds in Grenada for agriculture is through equity financing.
Yeah. And that will make such a difference. And it goes in line with what we're talking about, self-reliance. And it's going to make those of us who have been in the diaspora for so many years, it's going to give them a comfort, a feeling of belonging. Because when you leave away from Grenada, you become more patriotic. You become a more patriotic Grenadian. I don't know, the love just develops when you
realize how vulnerable you're in the United States of America and what.
Yeah, and England.
So you start to like your country.
Yeah,
the Russians, the Russians, the Japanese want to kill you, the Chinese want to kill you, the Jews don't want to see you. That is the only time you realize a Grenadian nice.
And I remember when I used to come and the plane would land and I'm on the stairs coming down, I remember how nice I used to feel.
You feel good.
Yeah, coming off that plane.
And when you reach in the rum shop, you buy rum again.
Yeah.
And it was an act that I want to contribute. I want to do something. Mm-hmm. So our people in the diaspora have been providing assistance. Somebody in the videos who go trying to deal with the people in the diaspora, I don't know what they're telling them. Because equity financing was something that you could have said. Mm-hmm. These people are already spending a couple dollars well enough. I don't want to say hundreds of dollars or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're spending money to help Grenada. But that is where you could spend money
effective
in an investment. It's almost like you're buying Pampers, but you expect a small return and the investment could grow. And when you get the Pampers, the only thing could end up in the toilet. But here, you give some assistance, and that assistance is used in the agriculture project. You say the farmers of Paul's, they provide irrigation lines for 22 farmers in Paul's, and that is going to bring in a little return of about 3% in the next 5 years, but it is managed by a reputable financial institution, and I will get back a little assistance.
Well said, Mr. Pierre. Well said.
We have to do better. I don't know why they're sending these people in the diaspora. Some of the people in the diaspora don't know what happened to them. They feel to get them 12 strokes. But we need to get results. So we must start to discuss equity financing.
I agree with you with the equity financing.
You don't agree with me the strokes? Well, we're gonna put that in the refrigerator, and let us work with what we agree on.
I tell you, your former prime minister tell you don't go there, don't go there.
I'm going there,
but you keep going there.
I'm going there. We have to dare. So equity financing must be discussed.
Yeah, but it not only discuss. I mean, this thing is agreed. We need to put the things in place. We need to put the infrastructure in place and get it going, because I think there's a generation is around that's dying out, and they done very well.
Quick.
Yeah, they're dying quick. They're done very well, but they're wealthy, and they're not coming home. They're coming home for a special occasion.
A lot of the money just staying in the bank.
Yeah. So they, at least if they buy some shares, they feel like they do
They're likely to get return from the shares.
Yeah.
So we must continue to hold discussion on that at all levels. The farmers must discuss it. The financial institutions must discuss it. The GDP bank must discuss it after the directors let them go. The credit unions, the trade union in the country should discuss equity financing, because they themselves could set up a reputable body that perhaps could manage equity funds.
Yeah, so is it Mr. Cumberbatch who's the new manager now or something like that?
That's hardly bother with the name, you know.
Yeah, but
normally I don't bother with manager's name.
Yeah,
because I want to see what is the manager policy.
Yeah,
and his discipline, his financial discipline.
Yeah, but I'm sure I've heard him talked about equity financing as well. So it's something that probably talked about and got put to sleep.
Well,
so we need to wake it up again.
It must not sleep, because the thing is so practical. Here you have thousands of people in the diaspora that want to help their country. They don't know how to help. So they go in and buy Pampers and milk and bed and rocking chair, books, outdated computer, and they send on it. So now you're guiding them. You want to help. So here is a way that you could help.
Yeah.
You could get involved in equity financing.
Maybe
you put $100 in it.
Yeah.
But if 10,000 of you put $100, it's a lot of money. And that equity financing would be managed by a reputable organization in Grenada. I don't know where we will get it, but we have to make one quick.
Yeah. So you're saying because of some of the allegations or skullduggery that is a wrong GDP.
GDP bank directors must go.
Okay.
Or they must explain to the public. They have said nothing. They did not explain to the public why they flaunted the law with impunity. They may have a good reason.
Yeah.
But they can't just flaunt the law and say nothing.
The other thing we need to know from the GDP is how much agricultural loan they've made every 6 months. Because I've heard a lot of farmers saying they're applying for the money, but they don't get in the money. So we need to see how much have been applied for the money, how many was successful, how many was turned down, and why.
That is when organization is above board.
Oh.
You're asking for organization that is above board, that gives you a report, that make the report publicly, that can defend the report, that can open themselves so people question it.
But we
Not
have
people
to have
like
that.
me. My ability in these things is less than this. But a reputable organization could question it. But once you hear they hiding, come like Manico, you have to bring dog to go and find them out. You know? So that's one of the challenges that we have, equity financing. We believe it's an option for funds.
Mr. Pierre, we say the diaspora, but you know there's a lot of people right at home with a lot of money who would also buy into the equity fund.
Most of the people with plenty of money, they go away and come back. By the time they go away, they believe they come from the diaspora. I had to tell a friend of mine, I said, no. You're living in Grenada, you just only go in the States on holiday. I've seen you too regular here. Stop saying you're from the States. You're living in Grenada.
But a lot of the so-called returnees, what they used to call them, JCB?
In Barbados, they call them JCBs. Just come back. In Jamaica, they call them some You call them freshwater Yankee.
Oh, God.
We just finding names to demeaning our people.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
habit in us. Then people come back home, they put on the short pants, they're so glad.
Yeah,
They say,
yeah,
freshwater Yankee come back.
yeah, yeah.
To spoil, sometimes they say they come back to spoil we country.
Yeah, because
And that is the best stories you could get.
yeah, because I think it was maybe, I don't know, in the 70s or 80s, a group of them came back and there was a whole stimulus in building in Grenada.
Of course, from England.
Yeah, from
A
England.
lot of the houses in Plains, in Digo Peace, in Fort Judy, they build some massive houses.
Yeah.
And then they get sick and die.
Yeah, yeah, but at least...
But they try.
Yeah, they tried.
Because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
houses are still there.
Yeah, but that was their dream.
Yeah.
You see how big their dream was. It might not have been...
We could have get them to buy the bank.
Yeah,
Because at that time, some of us was playing around with the idea that most people from England, particularly those that came back with their husband, come back with have a $2 million in liquidity. And we advocated then that the government could lobby them to buy the GDP bank, the NCB bank.
all right.
But they didn't bother with us. So equity financing is a good thing.
Yeah,
And maybe we must start to encourage
yeah,
discussion
yeah.
on equity financing. We have about 10 minutes more. Joshua, another...
We need to make it a reality, though. We can't continue discussion. We want the structure to be in place by the end of the year.
Well, I wouldn't put a timeline on the year, but I would say we would like Grenadians to start talking about these things.
We're
and a lot of
talking now.
people going to ask questions.
Yeah. So we need a
Another-
framework.
Another issue we believe is self-financing. Grenadian door broken. The farmers are buying vehicle for $100,000. Our farmers, we have 68,000 registered vehicles in Grenada, 110,000 people. Almost, we have more than 100,000 cell phones. A number of our teachers drive themselves to school. Teachers are only calling all the teachers because it's easy to target all them. And I always want to remember all them. So it shows that we have a lot of discretionary income. But how much money are we putting back in the land? And that is where we want to talk about self-financing. Do you think that farmers could do better to finance themselves?
I certainly think self-financing will play an important part in development in terms of the land, but it has to be a system where people know that it's part and parcel of where the asset or money is going into. And sometimes I will talk about something that maybe not a lot of people agree on. The way I've seen a lot of people do land and develop land over the years is that they might want to do farming and they don't have all the money. And I've seen farmers who sell a portion or a little piece and use that money that they gain from the sale to develop the farm or to develop the business. And I think it's really important to do self-financing. And BJ was tremendously helpful to me in terms of self-financing, because I have been doing some plantings, and I had about 700 on the ground that the little penny I had put into it. And
You didn't change it to US?
Yeah, and BJ said to me, no, I said to BJ, I want to get up to 3,000. And he says, Josh, a man like you doing all this thing for everybody, so you should be able to get the assistant to get you 3,000 overnight. But he says, this is what you could do. All the planting that you planted, within a few weeks they will have suckers. So every week plant about 10 suckers. not every week. You were saying daily. Every day, plant about 3 or 4. Within a week, you might have 30 underground or so, and you don't have to buy the sucker anymore. You just have to organize. So the money that you have going towards the labor, because you don't have any income coming from it. And Mr. Pierre, I drove past my land. Well, it's not my land; it's family land. I drove past the land, I think a day or two ago, and I saw a planting coming down. So the money is coming.
You was impressed. So the
not,
point
not only was I impressed, Mr. Pierre. So get this right. Everybody who sees it is impressed. I don't know how you not impressed.
we have to. I thought you could with some serious US. No, we have to get farmers to sit down with family members and farmers and see, I have a plot of land.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 acres or 10 acres or whatever. I am not able to access money from the financial institutions.
Mm-hmm.
How do I fund myself?
Yeah.
Do I buy the vehicle this year or do I purchase a vehicle in the next 3 years?
Very practical.
The money that I'm using to buy the vehicle, do I buy a pump first?
Mm-hmm.
Buy a pump for $30,000-$40,000 and make sure my irrigation lines is on.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers must start to ask, how much money do I reinvest in my land?
Yeah.
So I had a crop of melon that brought me $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do I remove $1,000 out of that gross income
Mm-hmm.
and put it to buy a 1,000-gallon tank
Yeah.
that are credited?
Yeah. You're
So-
making good sense.
So at least after 10 years, that farmer might have 5 tanks. That farmer may well have 5 tanks
Mm-hmm.
for irrigation purposes.
Yeah, yeah.
Do my wife tell my wife, don't go on holiday in America this year.
Mm-hmm.
Stay. And the money you have to get to go on holiday, we're
Yeah.
going to put it up. Does the wife say to the husband that every day you're drinking 3 beers? And then if you drink 3 beers a day at $10, that is $3,650 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, better you drink 8 rum for the week. And that money you save for the week, you could buy the pump.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we sit down, actually, and see how we could finance it?
We don't do family business. We do very individual.
1 minute again?
But
That's
I
what
like that what you just
That's
said.
what
It's
happened
very
when we don't
practical.
Yes, we basically want people to discuss issues. We want to provoke discussion. We want farmers sit down with the children at in secondary school because they would be doing equity, whatever they're doing in school. I don't know. But maybe if we brainstorm, if we sometimes take a day to be the family think tank, how do we finance project? And you decide to plant tomatoes, and tomatoes is what? 3, 4, 5 months crop?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So let us make some sacrifice.
Yeah.
Let us make some sacrifice today. And that tomatoes crop, we may get $10,000 from it.
Yeah, yeah.
But out of the 10,000, we're going to use 2,000 to reinvest in the land. Joshua, a lot of money have been passed in the farmer's hand. And we asked the farmers, how much money did you reinvest in your lands? We come to the end, Joshua, so say something.
Well, I think the whole idea in terms of financing, we gave it a go this morning, and we have to become practical. But I really like the idea that you ended on, Mr. Pierre, in terms of, just thinking practical and doing small, and eventually you get there. Sometimes you don't get the loan, you don't have the big amount, but doing the small amount, and as BJ had suggested to me as well, planting 5 planting a week, you're going to get there.
Yes, so we want to thank you again for being with us on the program Studio Galaxy, and we are the Galaxy Equalizers. We provoke discussion. So we want you to give us a like. Subscribe to our program, like our program, share our program, and let us discuss and come up with answers for the challenges we face in agriculture.
Eat local.
It ends too.
Questions, sing and beat you drum. Make you suggestions, encourage them on to walk the straight and narrow in the land.